The email arrived at 9:02 a.m. Subject line blank. Sender familiar enough to tighten Marcus Reed's jaw before he even opened it. He stood in the glass-walled conference room of Dalton and Pierce Consulting, sunlight cutting across the table like a blade. Outside the room, phones rang, keyboards clacked, life moved on. Inside, Marcus read the same sentence for the third time. We'll need to revisit the payment timeline. No apology. No explanation. Just that. Marcus closed his laptop slowly. He could still hear his mother's voice from years ago. Get it in writing, baby, because smiles don't pay bills. He had done that. Every clause. Every deadline. Every signature. The contract was airtight. The door opened. Ethan Caldwell, senior partner, stepped in, coffee in hand, easy smile locked in place. Still waiting on North Star? Ethan asked lightly. Marcus nodded. Deadlines today. Ethan leaned against the table, eyes flicking toward the hallway before lowering his voice. You know how these clients are. Sensitive. Don't push too hard. I'm not pushing, Marcus said. I'm asking them to honor the contract. Ethan's smile thinned. Let's not make this adversarial. Marcus felt it then, the familiar heat in his chest. The unspoken translation. Know your place. Ethan straightened, already turning away. We'll handle it upstairs. Marcus spoke before he could stop himself. If we don't enforce the deadline, they'll never respect it. Ethan paused at the door and said, quietly, without looking back, respect isn't always something you get to demand. The door clicked shut. Marcus stared at his reflection in the glass. Tie perfect, posture controlled, pulse hammering, while his phone buzzed with a news alert about North Star's record profits. And then his inbox refreshed again. This time, the message wasn't from the client. It was from HR. Marcus Reed checked the time for the fourth time in 10 minutes. 9:47 a.m. The conference room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and burnt coffee, the kind of neutral corporate scent meant to erase any sense of humanity. Marcus sat straight-backed at the long glass table, laptop open, contract printed and aligned perfectly beside it. Clause 12.3 stared back at him like a dare. Payment due by end of business day. No exceptions. Outside the room, the office hummed. Inside, Marcus waited. His phone vibrated. Not the client. Dana, you hear anything yet? Marcus typed back. Nothing. The door opened, and Ethan Caldwell walked in as if the space belonged to him. He didn't sit. He leaned. Morning, Marcus. Ethan. Ethan glanced at the contract. You're still focused on North Star. The deadline's today. Ethan smiled, thin and practiced. They're a long-term relationship. So is this firm, Marcus said. That's why contracts matter. Ethan exhaled softly. You're technically right. Marcus looked up. Technically. Ethan folded his arms. There's a difference between enforcing and antagonizing. I sent a reminder, Marcus said. 1. Ethan tilted his head. How did you phrase it? Professionally. Was. Ethan's eyes lingered a second too long. Sometimes, Ethan said, clients perceive urgency differently. Marcus kept his voice even. The contract doesn't. Ethan straightened. Let's take this upstairs. Why? Because, Ethan said, lowering his voice, we don't want to risk the relationship over tone. Marcus felt the word land. The elastic accusation that could stretch to mean anything. I'm not emotional, Marcus said. I'm accurate. Ethan's smile flickered. No one said you were emotional. Another pause. He said it anyway. Ethan's phone buzzed. He checked it, then nodded toward the door. Leave it with me. Marcus didn't move. If we don't enforce it today, we set a precedent. Ethan's expression hardened. I'll handle it. That's what worries me, Marcus said. Silence pressed down between them. Ethan leaned closer. You're very good at what you do, Marcus. Don't undermine that by being difficult. Marcus stood. Holding a client accountable isn't difficult. It's my job. Ethan stepped back, eyes cool now. Not everything needs to be a stand. The door closed behind him. Marcus sat back down slowly. His reflection stared at him from the glass. Controlled, contained, already tired. At 11:13 a.m., the client replied. Let's discuss next quarter. Marcus forwarded the email to Ethan with a single line. Deadline is today per section 12.3. At 11:19 a.m., HR emailed him. Please stop by this afternoon to discuss a concern. No details. No context. Marcus closed his laptop. The office noise felt suddenly distant, like he was underwater. He picked up the contract again, fingers tightening on the paper, and understood with absolute clarity. This was never about the deadline. Human resources occupied the quietest corner of the building, where the carpet was thicker and the voices softer, as if discomfort could be managed through acoustics. Marcus Reed arrived 5 minutes early and sat alone in the waiting area. Hands folded, spine straight, expression neutral. He had learned long ago that neutrality was armor. The door opened at exactly 2 o'clock. Marcus, Linda Hargrove said, smiling. HR director. White woman in her late 50s. Voice. Safe hands. He stood. Yes. Her office was bright, intentionally so. Plants by the window. Framed diversity statements on the wall. We value every voice. Inclusion is our strength. Linda gestured to the chair across from her desk. Thank you for coming in. Of course. She sat, folded her hands and sighed gently. This is an informal conversation. Marcus nodded. About. Linda hesitated just long enough to matter. Concerns have been raised. Concerns about what exactly? She smiled again. Your communication style. Marcus waited. There's been feedback, Linda continued, that some of your recent interactions may have felt confrontational. With the client. With colleagues as well. Marcus leaned back slightly. Can you be specific? Linda glanced at her screen. I'm not at liberty to share names. I didn't ask for names. I asked for examples. Another pause. She chose her words carefully. Pushing the North Star payment issue so firmly may have created tension. The payment is overdue, Marcus said. Per contract. Linda nodded quickly. Yes, but perception matters. Perception of what? Of intent. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest. My intent was to enforce the agreement. And that's valid, Linda said soothingly. But sometimes urgency can be misinterpreted. Misinterpreted how? As aggression. The word hung there unclaimed. Marcus exhaled slowly. Has anyone questioned the client for missing the deadline? Linda's eyes flickered. This meeting isn't about the client. That's the issue, Marcus said. Linda leaned forward. Marcus, we want you to succeed here. I've been succeeding, he said. Consistently. No one's disputing your performance. Then why am I here? She smiled thinner this time. Because high performers are held to higher standards. Marcus almost laughed. Almost. What standard did I violate? Professional tone. Defined by impact. So not by policy. Linda tilted her head. Policies can't capture everything. Marcus nodded slowly. Are there written complaints? Linda tapped her keyboard. There are notes. About what? About how situations feel. Marcus leaned forward now. Linda, I'm asking because this feels vague on purpose. She stiffened slightly. We don't want this to escalate. I didn't escalate anything, Marcus said. I sent one reminder email. Linda's voice softened further. Sometimes one email is enough. He looked at the diversity statement behind her. Would this conversation be happening if I hadn't sent it? She didn't answer. Instead, she said, we'd like you to consider adjusting your approach going forward. Adjust how? Less direct. More collaborative. With a client that hasn't paid. With leadership, Linda corrected gently. Marcus stood. So this is about hierarchy. It's about harmony. He smiled without warmth. Harmony for who? Linda sighed. Marcus. I'm not angry, he said. I'm trying to understand the rules. Because they seem to change when I follow them. Her expression hardened just a little. No one is accusing you of wrongdoing. Then put that in writing. She blinked. That won't be necessary. Then this conversation is. Linda closed her laptop. This is an informal coaching moment. Which goes on my record. She hesitated. It's internal. Marcus picked up his jacket. So is bias. Linda's smile vanished. Be careful with that word. Why? He asked. Is it confrontational? Silence. As he walked out, he felt eyes on him. Colleagues who wouldn't meet his gaze. Doors that closed a second too quickly. Dana passed him in the hallway, her face tightening with concern. They pulled you in too, she whispered. He nodded once. Her jaw clenched. Document everything. I am. At his desk, Marcus opened a new folder on his laptop. He labeled it carefully. Start. Chart. Timeline. At 4:58 p.m., another email arrived from the client. Let's reconnect after the quarter closes. Marcus stared at the screen, then forwarded it, to himself, to his personal email, to the folder. He leaned back, the office lights buzzing overhead, and understood the rule at last. Professionalism wasn't about behavior. It was about compliance. Marcus didn't go home right away. He sat in his car in the underground garage, engine off, phone glowing in the dark. The concrete walls trapped sound and heat, made everything feel heavier. He replayed Linda's voice in his head. Informal, coaching, harmony, words smooth enough to slide blame without leaving fingerprints. His phone buzzed. Dana, you okay? Marcus typed, erased, typed again. Can you talk? She replied instantly. Cafe on 12th. I'm here. The cafe was half empty, late afternoon lull. Dana sat in the corner booth, jacket still on, eyes sharp and tired in the same way his felt. She didn't ask how he was. She slid a notebook across the table. Read, she said. Marcus flipped it open. Bullet points. Missed promotions. Delayed bonuses. Feedback sessions. HR meetings that sounded painfully familiar. You keep records, he said. I learned, Dana replied. The first time I thought it was personal. Second time coincidence. Third time pattern. He looked up. How many times? She took a breath. Enough. Marcus leaned back. They're doing the same thing to me. Dana gave a humorless smile. Of course they are. They framed it as tone. Always tone, she said. Or attitude. Or fit. I enforced a contract. And that, Dana said quietly, is the problem. Marcus frowned. Explain that to me. She stirred her coffee without drinking it. You didn't just remind a client. You made it clear their power had limits. So some people aren't supposed to do that. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. This firm sells accountability. To clients, Dana said. Not upward. Not sideways. He flipped another page. Why didn't you escalate? I did, she said. Once. And suddenly I was struggling with collaboration. Marcus closed the notebook slowly. They're isolating me. That's the stage you're in, Dana said. After the meeting. Before the warning. What warning? She met his eyes. Performance. Marcus exhaled through his nose. I've never missed a metric. Doesn't matter, she said. They don't need truth. They need a story. Silence settled between them, broken only by the espresso machine hissing in the background. You thinking of backing off? Dana asked. I'm thinking of documenting everything, Marcus said. Emails, meetings, timelines. Good, she said. But understand this. Once you start writing things down, they'll feel it. Feel what? That you're not afraid. Marcus looked down at his hands. They were steady, but only because he was forcing them to be. Why are you helping me? He asked. Dana shrugged. Because nobody helped me soon enough. At work the next morning the air had shifted. Conversations stopped when Marcus approached. Meetings happened without him. His calendar invitation to a North Star follow-up mysteriously disappeared. At noon, Ethan called him into his office. "Have a seat," Ethan said, folding his hands like a priest. Marcus stayed standing. "I noticed my meeting was cancelled." Ethan smiled. "We're streamlining communication. Without me. Don't be defensive. I'm being direct." Ethan sighed. "Marcus, HR mentioned you might be feeling targeted." Marcus stared at him. "Is that concern or accusation?" Ethan leaned back. "You need to decide what you want long-term." "What does that mean?" "It means," Ethan said carefully, "some hills aren't worth dying on." Marcus nodded slowly. "And some contracts aren't worth honoring." "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant." Ethan's smile vanished. "Be careful." "With what?" "With how this looks." Marcus finally Saturday. "How does it look?" "Like you're making this about more than business." Marcus laughed once, sharp and short. "It is more than business." Ethan stood. "This conversation is over." At his desk later, Marcus opened the folder again. Added dates, added quotes, added the cancelled meeting. At 6:12 p.m., Dana stopped by his cubicle. "They asked me about you," she said softly. "What did you say?" "That you're thorough." She hesitated. That made them nervous. Marcus saved the document and closed his laptop. For the first time, he didn't wonder if this was happening. He wondered how far they were willing to go to make him disappear. Marcus sent the email at 9:01 a.m. He had rewritten it 6 times, stripping out anything that could be twisted into tone. No adjectives. No emotion. Just facts. Per section 12.3 of our agreement, payment was due yesterday at close of business. Please confirm remittance today to avoid breach. He copied Ethan. Legal. Finance. Then he sat back and waited. The reply came fast. Too fast. North Star CFO. Your message is inappropriate. We are reviewing internal timelines. Escalating this is unnecessary. Ethan appeared at Marcus's desk within minutes. Smile already in place. "Conference room," he said. Inside, Ethan closed the door gently. "What were you thinking?" "I enforced the contract." "You embarrassed them." "They didn't pay." Ethan rubbed his temple. "You went over my head." "I followed procedure." Ethan laughed softly. "Procedure isn't the same as politics." Marcus crossed his arms. "The law isn't political." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Everything is." His phone buzzed. He checked it, then slid it face down. "HR wants to join us." Linda arrived moments later, folder tucked under her arm. "This is moving quickly," she said. "Because the client escalated," Marcus replied. Linda Saturday, they feel attacked. Marcus looked at her. "They breached a contract." Ethan leaned forward. "Marcus, do you want to work here?" The question landed heavy. "Yes," Marcus said. "Which is why I won't let us be exploited." Linda exchanged a glance with Ethan. "We're placing you on a short-term performance review." Marcus stared. "For enforcing a contract." "For communication concerns," she said. "Put that in writing," Marcus replied calmly. Linda hesitated. "This is meant to support you." "Then document it." Ethan stood. "You're making this worse." "No," Marcus said. "You are." Silence stretched. Linda finally nodded. "You'll receive documentation by end of day." Marcus stood. "Good." At 3:42 p.m. the memo arrived. Employee exhibits repeated difficulty aligning with leadership expectations. No mention of North Star. No mention of the deadline. At 4:10 p.m. the client paid. Finance confirmed receipt. No apology. No acknowledgement. Ethan stopped by Marcus's desk once more. Crisis averted. Marcus looked up. "Because I enforced the contract." Ethan smiled tightly. Because we managed it. That night, Marcus forwarded everything to his lawyer. Emails, memos, timelines. At 11:07 p.m., his phone buzzed. Dana, they put me on a project review too. Marcus closed his eyes. This wasn't escalation. It was war dressed as professionalism. The performance review arrived with a calendar invite. Mandatory. Attendance required. No agenda. Marcus stared at the screen, then clicked accept. His hands felt steady, but his stomach had been tight for days, a low, constant pull like gravity. The firm had stopped pretending. That, at least, was honest. The room was smaller this time. No windows. Linda sat at the head of the table. Ethan to her right. A man from legal Marcus had never met sat to her left. Fingers steepled, expression unreadable. Thank you for joining, Linda began. Marcus nodded. Let's begin. She slid a document across the table. This outlines concerns raised over the past 2 weeks. Marcus didn't touch it. Read them. Linda cleared her throat. You've shown difficulty aligning with leadership direction, resistance to feedback, and a pattern of escalating issues rather than collaborating. Marcus looked at Ethan. Is enforcing a contract escalation? Ethan didn't answer. Marcus turned to legal. Is enforcing a signed agreement against policy? The man spoke carefully. This isn't about legality. It's about internal conduct. Conduct, Marcus repeated. Defined how? Linda interjected. We're recommending a voluntary leave. 2 weeks. Paid. Marcus smiled once. To cool off. To reset, she said. And if I decline? Linda hesitated. We'd proceed with formal corrective action. Marcus leaned back. So silence or punishment? Ethan bristled. That's unfair. Is it inaccurate? Marcus asked. No one answered. Marcus picked up the document at last, scanned it, then set it down. There's no mention of North Star paying late. Linda folded her hands. That issue is resolved. Because I escalated it. Because leadership intervened. Ethan corrected. Marcus nodded slowly. This is retaliation. Legal shifted. I'd caution you against that language. Why? Marcus asked. Does it make you uncomfortable? Linda's voice sharpened. Marcus, we are trying to protect you. From what? From yourself. The words landed hard. Marcus stood. I'm not taking leave. Ethan stood too. Then you leave us no choice. So be it. He walked out without shaking hands. The office felt colder than before. Emails went unanswered. His access to North Star files disappeared. Meetings were cancelled without notice. When he entered rooms, conversations stopped. Dana found him by the elevators. They told me not to talk to you, she whispered. And I'm talking anyway. He smiled, grateful and exhausted. They offered me leave. They offered me silence, Dana said. I said no too. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, papers spread like evidence in a trial no one wanted to hold. He called his mother. They're pushing me out, he said. She didn't sound surprised. Are you surprised? No. Are you ready? He closed his eyes. I don't know. Then get ready, she said. Because this part hurts. The next morning a company-wide email went out. Marcus Reed will be taking personal leave effective immediately. He stared at the message, pulse pounding. He hadn't agreed. He hadn't signed anything. His phone buzzed. Ethan, this is for the best. Marcus replied once. Put it back in writing. No response. By noon his badge stopped working. Security walked him out politely, apologetically, eyes averted. One of them whispered, I'm sorry, man. Outside, the city noise crashed over him. Cars, voices, life continuing. Dana texted him a photo. Her own calendar invite. Title. Mandatory. Marcus sat on the curb, phone in hand, and felt something settle deep inside him. Not despair, not fear. Clarity. Silence wasn't accidental. It was policy, and policies could be challenged. The lawyer's office smelled like paper and old coffee, the honest kind of mess that came from work being done instead of appearances being maintained. Marcus sat across from Angela Morales, employment attorney, mid-40s, sharp eyes that didn't soften when he mentioned Dalton and Pierce. "You did the right thing by documenting," she said, flipping through his folder. "Most people don't. They don't think they'll need to," Marcus replied. Angela nodded. "They're trained not to." She tapped an email with her pen. "This HR's memo, this is vague by design. That's a problem for them, not you." Marcus leaned forward. "They put me on leave without consent." Angela's jaw tightened. "That's constructive termination. So I was fired." "In practice," she said. "Yes." Marcus let the word settle. "Fired. Not for incompetence. Not for misconduct. For refusing to be quiet." Angela continued. "You also have retaliation, disparate enforcement, and potentially racial discrimination." Marcus exhaled slowly. "What happens now?" "We file," she said. "But before that we leverage." "Leverage how?" She slid a business card across the desk. "A journalist." Marcus stared at the name. "I don't want a headline." "You already have one," Angela said calmly. "You just don't control it yet." That night, Marcus sat on his couch, city lights bleeding through the blinds. He called Dana. "I talked to a lawyer," he said. "Good," Dana replied. "They put me on probation." "For what?" "Failure to align." Marcus closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "I'm documenting. Like you told me." 2 days later, Marcus met the journalist in a quiet diner. Her name was Rachel Kim. She didn't pull out a recorder at first. She listened. He told her everything. The deadline, the emails, or the leave announcement sent without consent. Rachel asked careful questions. "Did anyone ever dispute the contract terms?" "No." "Did they discipline the client?" "No." "Did they discipline anyone else for missing deadlines?" Marcus smiled without humor. "No." Rachel nodded slowly. "That's the story." "Not just mine," Marcus said. "They're doing it to others." She met his eyes. "Can you prove that?" "I know someone who can." Dana hesitated when Marcus called. "I don't want to lose everything," she said. "You're already losing it," he replied gently. "Just quietly." Silence stretched. Then, "I'll talk." Within a week, Rachel had emails, screenshots, internal language Marcus had never seen, executives referring to him as volatile, unpredictable, not a culture fit. One message made his hands shake. "We need to neutralize this before it becomes precedent." Rachel showed it to him without comment. "Is this normal?" Marcus asked. "It's common," she said. "That's worse." Dalton and Pierce noticed the pressure immediately. Angela received a call. Then another. "Settlement interest," she told Marcus. "Early. Aggressive." "I don't want hush money," Marcus said. Angela smiled. "Good. Because that's not what this is." The article ran on a Tuesday morning. No names in the headline. Just facts. Consultant claims retaliation after enforcing client contract. By noon, social media found the firm anyway. By 3, North Star issued a statement distancing themselves. By 5, Dalton and Pierce announced an internal review. Marcus watched it unfold from his kitchen table. Phone buzzing non-stop. Support. Hatred. Strangers telling him he was brave. Others telling him he should have played the game. Dana called, voice shaking. "They pulled me into legal." "You okay?" "I am now," she said. "Because I'm not alone." That night, Marcus slept for the first time in weeks. Not peacefully, but honestly. The next morning, Ethan's name appeared in his inbox. "We should talk." Marcus stared at the message, then forwarded it to Angela. He didn't reply. For the first time they were reacting instead of directing. Exposure had shifted the balance. And the system, finally visible, didn't like the light. The firm's logo disappeared from Marcus's inbox before the sun was fully up. Dalton and Pierce had gone silent overnight, as if retreating into themselves might undo what had already been said. The article spread anyway. Screenshots copied, summaries posted, threads multiplying faster than any press release could chase. Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a mug of coffee gone cold, phone buzzing every few seconds. Former classmates, old co-workers, people he hadn't heard from in years. Proud of you. This happened to me too. Be careful. At 9:14 a.m., the firm broke the silence. Dalton and Pierce is committed to an inclusive workplace and has initiated an independent review. Marcus read it twice, then set the phone down. They always say that, his mother said from the other end of the line. Yeah, Marcus replied. They do. Angela called an hour later. They've placed Ethan on administrative leave. Marcus closed his eyes. Temporary. For now, she said. HR leadership too. He felt no triumph. Only a dull ache, like pressure releasing from a wound that had been ignored too long. Dana texted him a photo from her office window. Security escorting Ethan out, box in hand. I didn't think I'd feel anything, she wrote. But I do. Marcus replied, that's allowed. By noon, Rachel's follow-up piece was already live. This time names were included. Internal emails quoted. Patterns laid bare. North Star settled quietly that afternoon. No admission of wrongdoing. A number large enough to be noticed. Dalton and Pierce didn't settle. Not yet. They sent Marcus a letter instead. Angela read it aloud over speaker. They dispute your characterization but are open to resolution. Marcus laughed once. They still think this is about characterization. Angela smiled. They always do. Outside, the world responded unevenly. A consulting firm reached out with interest, then withdrew after internal discussion. A former mentor sent a careful message. Supportive but distant. Dana called that evening. They asked me if I wanted to stay, she said. And I said no. Marcus sat back. You don't have to follow me out. I'm not, she said. I'm choosing myself. Silence hung between them, heavy but honest. That night, Marcus dreamed of conference rooms. Glass walls. People watching without hearing. The next morning, Dalton and Pierce released another statement. This one shorter. We acknowledge harm. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough to make shareholders nervous. Ethan resigned that afternoon. The news alert felt unreal when Marcus read it. No drama. No confrontation. Just a quiet end to a loud career. Angela texted him. This changes things. Did. Negotiations moved fast after that. Real numbers. Real terms. No non-disclosure clause that required silence about racism. Marcus signed 2 weeks later. Not because he forgave. Because he was tired. On his last legal call, Angela asked, How do you feel? Marcus thought about it. I feel like I lost something, he said. What? My faith in neutrality. She nodded. Most people don't lose that until much later. After everything was finalized, Marcus returned to the building one last time. Not to work, but to retrieve the box of personal items HR had mailed him. His nameplate. A photo of his father. A notebook filled with careful handwriting. Security nodded at him differently now. With recognition. Outside, Dana waited. Where to now? She asked. He looked up at the city, at the movement, the noise, the refusal of life to pause. Somewhere that doesn't confuse silence with peace, Marcus said. As they walked away, Marcus knew the cost hadn't been abstract. He'd lost a job, a network, sense of safety. But the system had lost something too. Its invisibility. The office Marcus chose next didn't have glass walls. It was smaller, quieter, tucked above a bookstore that smelled like paper and dust and patience. He liked that no one could watch him work from the hallway. He liked that the conference table had scratches. On his first day, the managing partner, Maria Jensen, handed him a mug and said, If a client misses a deadline, we enforce it. Marcus studied her face, waiting for the second sentence. It didn't come. Okay, he said. It wasn't healing. But it was clean. The settlement funds landed a week later. Enough to breathe. Not enough to forget. He set aside money for therapy for his mother, for a small emergency fund that felt like armor. He donated a portion quietly to a legal aid group Angela recommended. Control mattered now. Dana started consulting independently. They met for lunch once a week, trading stories like maps of where not to step again. They reached out, she told him one afternoon. Dalton and Pierce. Exit interview. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You going? No, she said. They already know. The independent review wrapped 3 months later. The firm released a report filled with cautious language and undeniable facts. Policy changes. Leadership restructuring. Mandatory training. No one said his name. That was fine. Marcus testified once, briefly, for a state labor inquiry sparked by the article. He answered clearly. Without bitterness. He let the record speak. At night, the adrenaline faded and left behind the residue. Flinches at email pings, dreams where meetings stretched without end, the old tightening when someone said, tone. Therapy helped. Naming things helped more. This wasn't your failure, his therapist said. It was a system reacting to accountability. Marcus nodded. I know. Knowing didn't erase the cost, but it gave it shape. One evening, he received a message from a junior consultant he'd never met. I read what happened. I enforced a deadline today. They backed down. Thank you. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. Document everything. He didn't add more. He didn't need to. North Star faded from the news cycle. Dalton and Pierce rebuilt. The world adjusted, as it always did, around the disruption without fully absorbing it. That part hurt more than he expected. At a panel discussion months later, someone asked him, would you do it again? The room was quiet, expectant. Marcus considered the question honestly. Yes, he said. But I'd prepare sooner. A ripple of laughter. Then silence again. Because justice isn't dramatic, he continued. It's procedural. It's emails and timestamps and refusing to be edited out of your own story. Afterward, a woman approached him. Char background. Nervous smile. I didn't speak up when it happened at my firm, she said. I wish I had. Marcus shook his head. You survived. That matters too. She exhaled, relieved. On a rainy Saturday, Marcus boxed up the last of his old notebooks. He paused over one page. A careful list of dates and quotes, the first record he'd kept. He didn't throw it away. He filed it. That night, he sat on his fire escape, city humming below, rain tapping metal like punctuation. His phone buzzed once. Unknown number. This is Ethan Caldwell. I owe you an apology. Marcus stared at the message, then set the phone down without replying. He didn't owe anyone closure. The apology came 2 weeks later anyway. Public, buried in an industry newsletter, framed as growth. Marcus read it once and moved on. He'd learned the difference between accountability and performance. Months passed. Work stabilized. Laughter came easier. The flinch softened. One evening, Maria knocked on his office door. We've got a client pushing payment, she said. Legal's ready. You want in? Marcus stood. Yes. In the meeting, the client postured. Delayed. Mile. Marcus waited, then said calmly. The deadline is today. The room shifted. The client paid. Afterward, Maria nodded at him. Nice work. Marcus returned to his desk, heart steady. Outside, the city kept moving. Systems creaked and resisted and adjusted, slowly, unevenly. Justice didn't arrive all at once. It showed up in moments, enforced deadlines, documented truths, people refusing to disappear. Marcus closed his laptop and looked out at the streetlights. The contract had ended, but the standard remained. And this time it held. A year passed without ceremony. No anniversary notifications. No emails marked 1 year since. Marcus preferred it that way. Time worked better when it wasn't being asked to perform. The bookstore downstairs changed its window display every month. That became his calendar. New spines, new covers, new arguments waiting to be opened. He liked knowing that stories survived long after institutions tried to outlast them. On a Tuesday afternoon, Maria stopped by his desk with a familiar look. Measured, alert. "We've got a client testing us," she said. "Late payment. Friendly excuses." Marcus closed his notebook. "What do you want to do?" She smiled. "What we always do." They enforced the deadline. No drama. No raised voices. Just an email with an attachment and a timestamp. The client paid within the hour and followed up with a thank you that sounded like relief. Marcus felt something shift. Not inside him but around him. A recalibration. The expectation had changed. Later that week, he joined a virtual roundtable on corporate governance. His role was modest. One of many faces in neat rectangles. When his turn came, the moderator asked, "What's one lesson companies still resist?" Marcus answered evenly. "That accountability isn't hostility." The chat filled with reactions. Some applause emojis. Some silence. After the call, a private message appeared. "We updated our contract enforcement policy because of your case." He replied with a single line. "Glad it helped." Dana called that evening from a crowded airport. "I took a long-term contract," she said. "My terms." "Congratulations," Marcus said. "Listen," she added. "They asked me in the interview how I handle difficult clients. And I said I don't confuse difficulty with disagreement." Marcus laughed. "You always were good with language." "So were you," she said. "You just weren't allowed to use it before." The city learned his rhythm again. Morning walks, work. Evenings where his shoulders finally dropped without being told. Therapy sessions spaced farther apart. Sleep that came without negotiation. But the vigilance never disappeared entirely. At a conference, someone introduced him as the guy from that article. Marcus corrected them gently. "I'm a consultant." They flushed, apologized, moved on. He didn't chase the moment. He didn't need to. One night, he found the old folder while cleaning his desk, the first one he'd created, labeled carefully. He opened it, read a few lines, closed it again. He kept it not as a wound, but as a receipt. The world still tested boundaries. Racism didn't dissolve because one firm had been exposed. It adapted. Learned new words. New masks. Marcus learned too. He learned when to push. When to pause. When to write instead of speak. When to speak anyway. At a mentorship event, a young black analyst asked him quietly, "How do you know when it's worth fighting?" Marcus considered the question longer than the room expected. "You don't," he said finally. "You decide what you can live with." She nodded, absorbing that. On his walk home, rain slicked the sidewalks into mirrors. Marcus passed the old Dalton and Pierce building by chance. The logo was the same. The lobby looked brighter. Different faces moved inside. He didn't slow down. At home, he received an email from an unknown sender. "I'm in HR. I read everything. I'm changing how we document concerns." Marcus stared at the message, then replied, "Be specific. Vagueness protects power." A minute later, "Thank you." He shut the laptop and sat by the window, watching headlights blur into lines. The city breathed. The system continued. Uneven, imperfect, pressured by small insistences it couldn't quite erase. Justice wasn't a verdict. It was precedent. Marcus poured himself a glass of water, feeling the quiet strength of repetition. Enforce, document, refuse to disappear. Tomorrow another deadline would come. And this time it would hold. The email came in just before dawn. Subject line simple enough to miss. "Question about your policy." Marcus read it on his phone while the city outside was still deciding whether to wake up. He didn't reply immediately. He learned to let urgency sit without letting it decide for him. By 8, He was at his desk, light slanting across the scratched table. He opened the message again. A mid-sized manufacturing firm. New client. Nervous tone. A missed payment downstream, a partner suggesting patience. Marcus typed back 2 sentences, clear and plain. He attached the policy. He added a date. When Maria passed his door, she nodded. Handled. Yes, Marcus said. She smiled. Good. The day unfolded without incident. No calls. No escalation. By late afternoon the payment posted. It still surprised him sometimes. How calm accountability could be when it wasn't being resisted by power that expected immunity. After work, Marcus walked instead of taking the train. He crossed streets he used to avoid, not out of fear but out of habit. The city had changed, or maybe he had. Either way, the air felt less tight. At home, he found a letter in his mailbox. Paper. Real stamp. He held it for a moment before opening it. It was from a law student. She'd read the articles, watched a panel. She wrote about her internship at a firm that talked about inclusion and practiced containment. She asked one question at the end. How do you keep going without becoming bitter? Marcus sat at the table and thought about it longer than he expected. He wrote back by hand. Bitterness comes from feeling erased. I kept going by staying visible, to myself first. He paused, then added another line. And by choosing places that hold what they promise. Weeks later, he stood in a conference room again. Different building. Different people. Same long table. The client on the screen smiled too easily. We'll need more time, the client said. I'm sure you understand. Marcus glanced at Maria. She gave him the slightest nod. I understand the request, Marcus said. The deadline stands. Was a recalculation. The client nodded. Understood. The meeting ended. No raised voices. No warnings. No coded language. Afterward, a junior associate lingered in the doorway. I liked how you handled that, he said. Direct but calm. Marcus smiled. Direct is calm. That night he met Dana for dinner. They talked about work, about nothing, about the future without outlining it too carefully. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The old place. Marcus considered. I miss who I thought I could be there. And now I'm who I am somewhere else. She raised her glass. To that. Later, alone on his fire escape, Marcus watched the city lights blink into rhythm. He thought about the folder he still kept. The record. The receipt. He thought about Ethan's apology, the firm's report, the way systems bent only when forced to look at themselves. He didn't mistake progress for permanence. But he trusted practice. The next morning a calendar reminder popped up. Policy review. He smiled at the ordinariness of it. Justice had stopped being an event and become maintenance. At the meeting, voices overlapped. Disagreements surfaced. Decisions were documented. Dates were set. No one flinched when Marcus spoke. When it ended, Maria said, "Thanks for holding the line." Marcus packed his notebook. That's the job. On his way out, he passed a framed mission statement by the door. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't poetic. But it was enforced. Outside, the city moved, imperfect and insistent. Deadlines arrived. Systems tested boundaries. People decided every day whether silence or clarity would be easier. Marcus walked into the noise with his shoulders relaxed. His steps steady. The work wasn't finished. But it held.